Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura, born James George Janos, July 15, 1951, is an American media personality, actor, author, retired professional wrestler, and former politician who served as the mayor of Brooklyn Park from 1993 to 1995 and as the 38th governor of Minnesota from 1999 to 2003. He was the first and only candidate of the Reform Party to win a major government position, but later joined the Green Party of the United States. Ventura was a member of the U.S. Navy underwater demolition team during the Vietnam War. After leaving the military, he embarked on a professional wrestling career from 1975 to 1986, taking the ring name Jesse the Body Ventura. He had a long tenure in the World Wrestling Federation, WWF, as a performer and color commentator, and was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2004. In addition to wrestling, Ventura pursued an acting career, appearing in films such as Predator and The Running Man, both 1987. Ventura first entered politics in 1991 when he was elected mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, a position he held until 1995. 3 years later, Ventura was the Reform Party candidate in the Minnesota gubernatorial election of 1998, running a low-budget campaign centered on grassroots events and unusual ads that urged citizens not to vote for politics as usual. Ventura's campaign was unexpectedly successful, with him narrowly defeating both the Democratic and Republican candidates. The highest elected official to ever win an election on a Reform Party ticket, Ventura left the Reform Party a year after taking office amid internal fights for control over the party. As governor, Ventura oversaw reforms of Minnesota's property tax as well as the state's first sales tax rebate. Other initiatives taken under Ventura included construction of the Metro Blue Line light rail in the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan area, and cuts in income taxes. Ventura left office in 2003, deciding not to run for re-election. After leaving office, Ventura became a visiting fellow at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government in 2004. He has since also hosted a number of television shows and has written several political books. Ventura remains politically active and currently hosts a show on Aura TV and on RT America called Off the Grid. As of September 2017, Ventura is hosting a variety news show on RT called The World According to Jesse. Ventura has repeatedly floated running for President of the United States on a Green Party ticket. Early life. Ventura was born James George Janos on July 15, 1951 in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the son of George William Janos and his wife, Bernice Martha, née Lentz. Both of his parents were World War II veterans. Ventura has an older brother who served in the Vietnam War. Ventura has described himself as Slovak since his father's parents were from Slovakia, his mother was of German descent. Ventura was raised as a Lutheran. Born in South Minneapolis by the Lake Street Bridge, he attended Cooper Elementary School, Sanford Junior High School, and graduated from Roosevelt High School in 1969. Roosevelt High School inducted Ventura into its first Hall of Fame in September 2014. Ventura served in the United States Navy from December 1, 1969, to September 10, 1975, during the Vietnam War, but did not see combat. He graduated in Bud/S Class 58 in December 1970 and was part of Underwater Demolition Team 12. Ventura has frequently referred to his military career in public statements and debates. He was criticized by hunters and conservationists for stating in an interview with the Minneapolis Star-Tribune in April 2001, "Until you have hunted men, you haven't hunted yet." Post-Navy. Near the end of his service in the Navy, Ventura began to spend time with the South Bay chapter of the Mongols Motorcycle Club in San Diego. He would ride onto Naval Base Coronado on his Harley-Davidson wearing his Mongol colors. According to Ventura, he was a full-patch member of the club and even third in command of his chapter, but he never had any problems with the authorities. In the fall of 1974, Ventura left the bike club to return to the Twin Cities. Shortly after that, the Mongols entered into open warfare with their biker rivals, the Hells Angels. Ventura attended North Hennepin Community College in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota in suburban Minneapolis during the mid-1970s. At the same time, he began weightlifting and wrestling. He was a bodyguard for the Rolling Stones for a time, before he entered professional wrestling and adopted the wrestling name Jesse Ventura. Professional wrestling career. Early career. He created the stage name Jesse the Body Ventura to go with the persona of a bullyish beach bodybuilder, picking the name Ventura from a map as part of his Bleach Blonde from California gimmick. As a wrestler, Ventura performed as a heel and often used the motto, "Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat," even going so far as having himself a t-shirt made with the words printed on the front. Much of his flamboyant persona was adapted from superstar Billy Graham, a charismatic and popular performer during the 1970s. Years later, as a broadcaster, Ventura made a running joke out of it, claiming that Graham stole all of his ring attire ideas from him. Singles and tag team success. In 1975, Ventura made his debut in the Central States Territory, before moving to the Pacific Northwest, where he wrestled for promoter Don Owen as Jesse the Great Ventura. During his stay in Portland, Oregon, he had notable feuds with Dutch Savage and Jimmy Snuka and won the Pacific Northwest Wrestling title twice, once from each wrestler, and the tag team title 5 times, twice each with Bull Ramos and Playboy Buddy Rose, and once with Jerry Oates. He later moved to his hometown promotion, the American Wrestling Association in Minnesota, and began teaming with Adrian Adonis as the East-West Connection in 1979. In his RF video shoot in 2012, he revealed that shortly after he arrived in the AWA he was given the nickname The Body by Vern Gagne. The duo won the promotion's World Tag Team Championship on July 20, 1980, on a forfeit when Vern Gagne, one half of the tag team champions along with Mad Dog Vachon, failed to show up for a title defense in Denver, Colorado. The duo held the belts for nearly a year, losing to the High Flyers, Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell. Retirement and commentary. Shortly after losing the belts, the duo moved on to the World Wrestling Federation, where they were managed by Freddie Blassie. Although the duo was unable to capture the World Tag Team Championship, both Adonis and Ventura became singles title contenders, each earning several title shots at World Heavyweight Champion Bob Backlund. Ventura continued to wrestle until September 1984 after 3 back-to-back losses to World Champion Hulk Hogan, when blood clots in his lungs effectively ended his in-ring career. He claimed that the blood clots were a result of his exposure to Agent Orange during his time in Vietnam. Ventura returned to the ring in 1985, forming a tag team with Randy Savage and Savage's manager, and real-life wife, Miss Elizabeth. Often after their televised matches, Ventura would taunt and challenge fellow commentator Bruno Sammartino, but nothing ever came of this. Ventura participated in a 6-man tag team match in December 1985 when he, Roddy Piper, and Bob Orton defeated Hillbilly Jim, Uncle Elmer, and Cousin Luke in a match which was broadcast on Saturday night's main event. The tag match against the Hillbillies came about after Piper and Orton interrupted Elmer's wedding ceremony on the previous edition of the show. Ventura, who later claimed that he was under instruction from fellow commentator and WWF owner Vince McMahon to bury them, insulted Elmer and his wife during commentary of what was a real wedding ceremony at the Meadowlands Arena, by proclaiming when they kissed, "It looks like 2 carp in the middle of the Mississippi River going after the same piece of corn." According to Ventura, the wedding was real, for at that time the New Jersey State Athletic Control Board would not allow the WWF to stage a fake wedding in the state of New Jersey, so Stan Frazier, Uncle Elmer, and his fiancée had agreed to have a real in-ring wedding. After a failed comeback bid, Ventura hosted his own talk segment on the WWF Superstars of Wrestling called The Body Shop, in much the same heel style as Piper's Pit, though the setting was a mock gym. When Ventura was unavailable, The Body Shop was often hosted by Don Muraco. He began to do color commentary on television for All Star Wrestling, replacing Angelo Mosca, and later Superstars of Wrestling. initially alongside Vince McMahon and the semi-retired Sammartino, and then just with McMahon after Sammartino's departure from the WWF in early 1988. Ventura most notably co-hosted Saturday night's main event with McMahon, the first 6 WrestleManias, 5 of which were alongside Gorilla Monsoon, and most of the WWF's pay-per-views at the time with Monsoon, with the lone exception for Ventura being the first SummerSlam, in which Ventura served as the guest referee during the main event. Ventura's entertaining commentary style was an extension of his wrestling persona, i.e. a heel, as he was partial to the villains, which was something new and different at the time. McMahon, who was always looking for ways of jazzing things up, came up with the idea of Ventura doing heel commentary at a time when most commentators, including McMahon himself, openly favored the fan favorites. However, Ventura would still occasionally give credit where it was due, praising the athleticism of fan favorites such as Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage, who was championed by Ventura for years, even when he was a face, a point Ventura regularly made on air to McMahon and Monsoon. Occasionally he would even acknowledge mistakes made by the heels, including those made by his personal favorites such as Savage or wrestlers managed by heels Bobby Heenan and Jimmy Hart. One notable exception to this rule was the WrestleMania 6 Ultimate Challenge title match between WWF Champion Hulk Hogan and the WWF Intercontinental Champion, the Ultimate Warrior. Since they were both fan favorites, Ventura took a neutral position in his commentary, even praising Hogan's display of sportsmanship at the end of the match when he handed over the WWF Championship belt to the Warrior after he lost the title, stating that Hogan was going out like a true champion. During the match, however, which was also the last match at WrestleMania he called, Ventura did voice his pleasure when both broke the rules, at one point claiming, "This is what I like. Let the two goody two-shoes throw the rule book out and get nasty." Ventura's praise of Hogan's action was unusual for him, because he regularly rooted against Hogan during his matches, usually telling fellow commentator Monsoon after Hogan had won a championship match at a WrestleMania that he might come out of retirement and take this dude out. Hogan and Ventura were at one point close friends. However, Ventura abruptly ended the friendship after he discovered, during his lawsuit against McMahon, that Hogan was the one who had told McMahon about Ventura's attempt to form a labor union in 1984. Following a dispute with McMahon over the use of his image for promoting a Sega product, while McMahon had a contract with rival company Nintendo at the time, the promoter released Ventura from the company in August 1990. Ventura later served as a radio announcer for a few National Football League teams, among them the Minnesota Vikings and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In February 1992 at Super Brawl II, Ventura joined World Championship Wrestling as a commentator. Ventura was ultimately released by WCW President Eric Bischoff for allegedly falling asleep during a WCW Worldwide TV taping at Disney MGM Studios in July 1994, although it has been speculated that the move may have had more to do with Hogan's arrival shortly before. Litigation. In 1987, while negotiating his contract as a WWF commentator, Ventura waived his rights to royalties on videotape sales when he was falsely told that only feature performers received such royalties. In November 1991, having discovered that other non-feature performers received royalties, Ventura brought an action for fraud, misappropriation of publicity rights, and quantum meruit in Minnesota State Court against Titan Sports, asking for the amount of $2 million in royalties based on a fair market value share. Titan moved the case to federal court, and Ventura won an $801,333 jury verdict on the last claim. In addition, the judge awarded him $8,625 in back pay for all non-video WWF merchandising featuring Ventura. The judgment was affirmed on appeal, and the case, 65 F.3d 725, 8th Sir 1995, is an important result in the law of restitution. As a result, Ventura's commentary is removed on most releases from WWE home video. At the time, Vince McMahon swore Ventura would never appear on any WWF program again. Return to the WWF/E. In mid-1999, Ventura reappeared on WWF television during his term as governor of Minnesota, acting as the special guest referee for main event of SummerSlam held in Minneapolis. Ventura would continue his relationship with the WWF by performing commentary for Vince McMahon's short-lived XFL. On the June 4, 2001 episode of Raw, which aired live from Minnesota, Ventura appeared to overrule McMahon's authority and approve a WWF Championship match between then-champion Stone Cold Steve Austin and Chris Jericho. On the March 20, 2003 episode of SmackDown, Ventura appeared in a taped interview to talk about the match between McMahon and Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 19. Less than a year later, he would be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2004 on March 13, 2004, and the following night at WrestleMania XX, he approached the ring to interview Donald Trump, who had a front row seat at the event. Trump affirmed that Ventura would receive his moral and financial support were he to ever re-enter the world of politics. Alluding to the 2008 election, Ventura boldly announced that in 2008, maybe we ought to put a wrestler in the White House. On the June 11, 2007 episode of Raw, Ventura appeared to give comments about McMahon. Ventura was guest host on the November 23, 2009 episode of Raw, during which he retained his heel persona by siding with the number one contender Sheamus over WWE Champion John Cena. This happened while he confronted Cena about how it was unfair that Cena always got a title shot in the WWE, while Ventura never did during his WWE career. After that, Sheamus attacked Cena and put him through a table. Ventura then made the match a table match at TLC, tables, ladders, and chairs. During the show, for the first time in nearly 20 years, McMahon joined Ventura at ringside to provide match commentary together. Acting career. Nearing the end of his wrestling career, Ventura began an acting career. He acted in the 1987 movie Predator, whose cast included future California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger and future Kentucky gubernatorial candidate Sonny Landham. Ventura became close friends with Schwarzenegger during the production of Predator. He appeared in 2 episodes of Zorro filmed in Madrid, Spain, in 1991. He had a starring role in the 1990 sci-fi movie Abraxas, Guardian of the Universe. He had supporting roles in The Running Man, Thunderground, Demolition Man, Repossessed, Ricochet, The Master of Disguise, in which he steals the Liberty Bell, and Batman and Robin, the first and last of these also starring Schwarzenegger. Ventura made a cameo appearance in Major League 2, as White Lightning. He appeared as a self-help guru, voice only, in The Ringer, trying to turn Johnny Knoxville into a more confident worker. Ventura had a cameo in the X-Files episode Jose Chunks from Outer Space as a man in black alongside fellow MIB Alex Trebek. In 2008, Ventura was in the independent comedy Woodshop, starring as a high school shop teacher named Mr. Madsen. The film was released September 7, 2010. Filmography. Other media. Jesse Ventura was a bodyguard for the Rolling Stones in the late 1970s and 80s. The Rolling Stones' Mick Jagger said of Jesse Ventura, "He's done us proud, hasn't he? He's been fantastic." In the late 80s, Ventura appeared in a series of Miller Lite commercials with Bob Uecker. In 1989, Ventura co-hosted the 4 episodes of the Dick Entertainment children's program Record Breakers along with Gary Apple. In 1991, the pilot episode for Tag Team, a television program about 2 ex-professional wrestlers turned police officers, starred Ventura and Roddy Piper. Ventura also co-hosted the short-lived syndicated game show The Grudge Match alongside sportscaster Steve Albert. Between 1995 and his run for governor Indiana 1998, Ventura had radio call-in shows on KFAN 1130 and KSTP 1500 in Minneapolis-St. Paul. He also had a brief role on the television soap opera The Young and the Restless in 1999. Ventura has been criticized by the press for privately profiting from his heightened popularity. He was hired as a television analyst for the failed XFL football enterprise, served as a referee at a World Wrestling Federation match, and published several books during his tenure as governor. On his weekly radio show, he often criticized the media for focusing on these deals rather than on his policy proposals. From 2009-2012, True TV aired 3 seasons of the television series Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura. Ventura had a guest spot on an episode of the 2012 rebooted Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series on Nickelodeon. In 2013, Ventura announced a new show, Jesse Ventura, Uncensored, which launched on January 27, 2014, and is now called Off the Grid, airing on Aura TV. Political career: Mayor of Brooklyn Park. Following his departure from the WWF, Ventura took advice from a former high school teacher and ran for mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota in 1990. Ventura defeated the city's 25-year incumbent mayor and served from 1991 to 1995. Governor of Minnesota. Ventura ran for governor of Minnesota in 1998 as the nominee for the Reform Party of Minnesota. He later joined the Independence Party of Minnesota when the Reform Party broke from its association with the Reform Party of the United States of America. His campaign consisted of a combination of aggressive grassroots events organized in part by his campaign manager Doug Friedline and original television spots, designed by quirky ad man Bill Hillsman, using the phrase "Don't vote for politics as usual." He spent considerably less than his opponents, about $300,000, and was a pioneer in his using the internet as a medium of reaching out to voters in a political campaign. He won the election in November 1998, narrowly, and unexpectedly, defeating the major party candidates, St. Paul Mayor Norm Coleman, Republican, and Minnesota Attorney General Hubert H. Skip Humphrey III, Democratic Farmer Labor. During his victory speech, Ventura famously declared, "We shocked the world." After his election, bumper stickers and T-shirts bearing the slogan "My governor can beat up your governor" appeared in Minnesota. The nickname Jesse the Mind, from a last-minute Hillsman ad featuring Ventura posing as Rodin's thinker, began to resurface sarcastically in reference to his frequently controversial remarks. Ventura's old stage name Jesse the Body, sometimes adapted to Jesse the Governing Body, also continued to appear with some regularity. After a trade mission to China in 2002, Ventura announced that he would not run for a second term, stating that he no longer felt dedicated enough to his job to run again, as well as what he viewed were constant attacks on his family by the media. Ventura accused the media of hounding him and his family for personal behavior and belief while neglecting coverage of important policy issues. He later told a reporter for the Boston Globe that he would have run for a second term if he had been single, citing the media's effect on his family life. Governor Ventura sparked media criticism when, nearing the end of his term, he suggested that he might resign from office early to allow his lieutenant governor, May Shunk, an opportunity to serve as governor. He further stated that he wanted her to be the state's first female governor and have her portrait painted and hung in the Capitol along with the other governors. Ventura quickly retreated from the comments, saying he was just floating an idea. Political positions. In political debates, Ventura often admitted that he had not formed an opinion on certain policy questions. Ventura frequently described himself as fiscally conservative and socially liberal. He selected teacher May Shunk as his running mate. Lacking a party base in the Minnesota House of Representatives and Senate, Ventura's policy ambitions had little chance of being introduced as bills. Initially, the residents of Minnesota feared Ventura's vetoes would be overturned. He vetoed 45 bills in his first year, only 3 of which were overridden. The reputation for having his vetoes overridden comes from his 4th and final year, where 6 of his 9 vetoes were overturned. Nevertheless, Ventura was still successful in several initiatives. One of the most notable was the rebate on sales tax. In each year of his administration, Minnesotans received a tax-free check in the late summer. The state was running a budget surplus at the time, and Ventura believed that the money should be returned to the public. Later, he came to support a unicameral, one-house, legislature, property tax reform, gay rights, and abortion rights. While funding public school education generously, he opposed the teachers' union, and did not have a high regard for the public funding of higher education institutions. Additionally, Ventura supported the use of medicinal marijuana, advocated a higher role for third parties in national politics, and favored the concept of instant runoff voting. He also opposed the death penalty. In an interview on The Howard Stern Show, he reaffirmed his support of gay rights, including in marriage and military service, humorously stating he would have gladly served alongside homosexuals when he was in the Navy, as they would have provided less competition for women. Later, on the subject of a 2012 referendum on amending the Minnesota Constitution to limit marriage to male-female couples, Ventura elaborated, "I certainly hope that people don't amend our Constitution to stop gay marriage because, number one, the Constitution is there to protect people, not oppress them," and went on to relate a story from his pro wrestling days of a friend who was denied hospital visitation to his same-sex partner. Ventura was elected on a Reform Party ticket, but he never received support from Ross Perot's Texas faction. When the Reform Party was taken over by Pat Buchanan supporters before the presidential elections of 2000, Ventura left the party in February 2000, referring to it as hopelessly dysfunctional. However, he maintained close ties to the Independence Party of Minnesota, which also broke from the Reform Party around the same time. During the first part of his administration, Ventura strongly advocated for land use reform and substantial mass transit improvements, such as light rail. He made the light rail project a priority, obtaining additional funding from the Minnesota State Legislature to keep the project moving. The Metro Blue Line was completed in 2004. During another trade mission to Cuba in the summer of 2002, he denounced the United States embargo against Cuba, stating that the embargo affected the Cuban public more than it did its government. In his book Independent Nation, political analyst John Avlon describes Ventura as a radical centrist thinker and activist. Views on political parties. Ventura, who ran on a Reform Party ticket and advocated for a greater role for third parties in American politics, is highly critical of both Democrats and Republicans. Ventura described both parties as monsters that are out of control, who are concerned only with their own agendas and their pork. He has been a supporter of third parties as governor and voted for Ralph Nader in 2000 and 2008, although he did vote for John Kerry in the 2004 presidential election. He then expressed a potential 2020 presidential candidacy with the Green Party of the United States. Wellstone Memorial. Ventura greatly disapproved of some of the actions that took place at the 2002 memorial for Senator Paul Wellstone, his family, and others who died in a plane crash on October 25, 2002. Ventura said, "I feel used. I feel violated and duped over the fact that the memorial ceremony turned into a political rally." He left halfway through the controversial speech made by Wellstone's best friend, Rick Kahn. Ventura had initially planned to appoint a Democrat to Wellstone's seat, but he instead appointed Dean Barkley to represent Minnesota in the Senate until Wellstone's term expired in January 2003. Barkley was succeeded by Norm Coleman, who won the seat against Walter Mondale, who became the Democratic candidate replacement a few days before the election. Political criticisms. After the legislature refused to increase spending for security, Ventura attracted criticism when he decided not to live in the governor's mansion during his tenure, choosing instead to shut it down and stay at his home in Maple Grove. Critics pointed to the loss of jobs for several working-class people at the mansion and the extra cost of reopening the mansion later. In 1999, a group of disgruntled citizens petitioned to recall Governor Ventura, alleging, among other things, that the use of state security personnel to protect the governor on a book promotion tour constituted illegal use of state property for personal gain. The petition was denied. The proposed petition was dismissed by order of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Minnesota. Under Minnesota law, a proposed petition for recall is required to be reviewed by the Chief Justice for legal sufficiency, and, upon such review, the Chief Justice determined that it did not allege the commission of any act that violated Minnesota law. Ventura sought attorney's fees as a sanction for the filing of a frivolous petition for recall, but that request was denied, on the ground that there was no statutory authority for such an award. In November 2011, Ventura held a press conference in relation to a lawsuit he had filed against the Transportation Security Administration. During that press conference, Ventura stated that he would never stand for a national anthem again. "I will turn my back and raise a fist the same way Tommy Smith and John Carlos did in the '68 Olympics. Jesse Ventura will do that today." During his tenure as governor, Ventura drew frequent fire from the press in the Twin Cities. He referred to reporters as media jackals, a term that even appeared on the press passes required to enter the governor's press area. Shortly after Ventura's election as governor, author and humorist Garrison Keillor wrote a satirical book about the event, spoofing Ventura as Jimmy, Big Boy, Valenti, a self-aggrandizing former Navy WALRUS, water air land rising up suddenly, turned professional wrestler turned politician. Initially, Ventura responded angrily to the satire, but later, in a conciliatory vein, said that Keillor makes Minnesota proud. During his term, Ventura appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman, in which he responded controversially to the following question: "So which is the better city of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis or St. Paul?" Ventura responded, "Minneapolis. Those streets in St. Paul must have been designed by drunken Irishmen." He later apologized for the remark, adding that it was not intended to be taken seriously. Consideration of bids for other political offices. While Ventura has not held public office since the end of his term as governor in 2003, he has remained politically active and has occasionally hinted at intentions of possibly running again for political office. In an interview on CNN's The Situation Room on April 7, 2008, Ventura said that he was considering entering the race for the United States Senate seat then held by Norm Coleman, his Republican opponent in the 1998 gubernatorial race. A poll commissioned by Twin Cities station Fox 9 put him at 24%, behind Democratic candidate Al Franken at 32% and Norm Coleman at 39% in a hypothetical three-way race. However, Ventura announced on Larry King Live on July 14, 2008, that he would not run. Ventura's decision not to join the race was partly rooted from a fear of a potential lack of privacy for his family, a concern that contributed to his refusal to seek a second term as governor. Franken ended up winning the election. In his 1999 autobiography, I Ain't Got Time to Bleed, Ventura suggested he did not plan on running for President of the United States but did not rule out such an idea. In 2003, he again expressed interest in running for president while accepting an award from the International Wrestling Institute and Museum in Newton, Iowa. He spoke at Republican presidential candidate Ron Paul's Rally for the Republic, organized by the Campaign for Liberty, on September 2, 2008. At the event, Ventura implied a possible future run at the U.S. presidency. At the end of his speech, Ventura announced before a live audience that if he saw that the public was willing to see a change in the direction of the country, then in 2012 we'll give them a race they'll never forget. In 2011, Ventura expressed interest in run.